A perfect life built on a mountain of lies. A devoted wife, a billionaire husband, and a baby on the way. But on the night of their anniversary, one phone call shatters everything. His mistress is also pregnant. And the wife? She's in the next room, hearing every single word. What happens when the truth comes out and two unborn children have a claim to the same fortune? This isn't just a story of infidelity. It's a story of survival, revenge, and the shocking lengths people will go to protect what's theirs. Stick around, because this gets messy. The air in the penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park was thick with the scent of white roses and unspoken anxieties. For Sienna Vance, every breath was a conscious effort. At 7 months pregnant, her body felt like a foreign country she was forced to inhabit. The bespoke, cream-colored silk dress, designed by a name she couldn't even remember, felt more like a beautifully crafted cage than a garment. It was her 3rd wedding anniversary, and her husband, Dominic Vance, the architect of their gilded life, had promised an evening of quiet celebration. Just the two of them. Dominic was a man sculpted by ambition. At 38, he was the CEO of Vance Holdings, a name synonymous with ruthless real estate development across New York City. He moved with a predator's grace, his dark hair perfectly coiffed, his Tom Ford suit clinging to a frame honed by early morning sessions with a personal trainer. He had a smile that could disarm senators and a gaze that could make competitors fold. To the world, he was a titan. To Sienna, he was the man who held the fragile snow globe of her life in his hands. She had met him at a charity gala 5 years ago. She was a fledgling art curator, passionate and full of dreams. He was the event's primary sponsor, a force of nature who had swept her off her feet with whirlwind dates in Paris, private yacht trips in the Mediterranean, and a proposal under the aurora borealis. He had painted a future so dazzling it blinded her to the shadows lurking at the edges. Now, those shadows felt closer than ever. "You look breathtaking, my love," Dominic said, his voice a low purr as he entered the living room. He held a velvet box in his hand. "Happy anniversary." Sienna forced a smile, the gesture feeling heavy on her face. "Happy anniversary, Dominic." He opened the box to reveal a necklace of staggering proportions. A sapphire the color of a twilight sky was surrounded by a halo of brilliant cut diamonds. It was exquisite, ridiculously expensive, and felt as cold as the glass separating them from the city below. "It's beautiful," she managed, allowing him to fasten it around her neck. His fingers lingered for a moment, and she fought the urge to flinch. The intimacy that had once been the cornerstone of their relationship had become a performance, a well-rehearsed play for an audience of one. "Only the best for my wife and the mother of my son," he said, placing a kiss on her cheek. He always said, "son." The doctors had confirmed it, and for Dominic, a male heir was not just a wish, it was an expectation, another acquisition for his empire. The evening progressed with the sterile perfection of a magazine spread. A private chef prepared a multi-course meal they barely touched. The conversation was stilted, a dance around the landmines of their shared, unspoken unhappiness. Sienna spoke of the nursery, the color palettes, the tiny clothes she'd been buying. Dominic talked about a new acquisition in Soho, a historic building he planned to gut and turn into luxury lofts. "The St. Regis project is finally moving forward," he said, swirling the deep red of a vintage Bordeaux in his glass. He'd poured her sparkling water with a slice of lime in a matching crystal goblet. "Had to grease a few palms on the city council, but that's the cost of doing business." Sienna nodded, feigning interest. She knew the truth. Greasing palms was Dominic's euphemism for threats, blackmail, and leveraging the kind of information that could ruin careers. He played the game of power with a chilling proficiency. It was during dessert, a raspberry soufflé that had long since deflated, that Dominic's phone buzzed. It was a sleek secondary phone, one Sienna knew was not for his business associates. It was his other phone. Her heart, already a heavy drum in her chest, began to beat a frantic, panicked rhythm. Dominic glanced at the screen, and for a fleeting second, his mask of serene control slipped. A flicker of annoyance, quickly suppressed, crossed his features. "Excuse me for a moment, darling. It's a contractor from the London office. Time difference, you know." He rose and walked towards his study, the heavy oak doors closing behind him with a soft, final click. The lie was so blatant, so insulting in its simplicity, that Sienna felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with her pregnancy. She knew it wasn't a contractor. It was Chloe. The name was a bitter taste in her mouth. She had found out about the affair 6 months ago. A credit card statement left carelessly on his desk, a charge for a boutique hotel in the West Village, followed by a purchase at a high-end lingerie store. The signs had been there for months before that: the late nights, the unexplained absences, the emotional distance that had grown into a chasm between them. Sienna had confronted him. He hadn't denied it. Instead, he had been terrifyingly calm. He'd explained it away as a meaningless dalliance, a stress reliever, something that had no bearing on their life, their marriage, their future. He'd promised to end it. He'd promised, but the secret phone still buzzed. Tonight, something was different. The silence in the penthouse was deafening. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall sounded like a countdown to a detonation. Driven by an impulse she didn't fully understand, Sienna stood up, her hand instinctively going to her swollen belly. She needed to know. She needed to hear the words, to have the raw, unvarnished truth sever the last threads of hope she pathetically clung to. She padded barefoot across the cold marble floor, her silk dress whispering around her ankles. The study doors were thick but not soundproof. She pressed her ear against the cool wood, her breath catching in her throat. She could hear Dominic's voice, low and urgent, stripped of the smooth charm he used on her. "Not tonight, Chloe. I told you, it's my anniversary." A pause. Sienna could almost picture the scene on the other end, Chloe, with her fiery red hair and a body sculpted for sin, probably pouting, her voice a weapon of calculated vulnerability. "What do you mean it can't wait?" Dominic's voice sharpened with impatience. "Is there a problem? Did something happen?" Another pause, longer this time. The silence stretched, pulling the air from Sienna's lungs. When Dominic spoke again, his voice was a strangled whisper, a sound she had never heard from him before. It was the sound of a man losing control. "You're what? Say that again." Sienna's blood ran cold. She knew. Before the next words were even spoken, a horrifying certainty settled in the pit of her stomach. "Pregnant?" Dominic's voice cracked on the word. "No. No, that's not possible. We were careful." The world tilted on its axis. Sienna stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a sob. The floor seemed to drop away beneath her, plunging her into an icy abyss. Pregnant. The other woman, the mistress, the meaningless dalliance, was pregnant. Inside the study, Dominic's panic was escalating. "How far along?" 2 months. "Are you sure it's Are you absolutely sure it's mine?" The question hung in the air, a testament to his character. His first instinct was not concern but doubt, a denial of responsibility. Sienna couldn't listen anymore. She backed away from the door, her vision blurring with tears. The sapphire necklace felt like a lead weight choking her. The beautiful penthouse, her gilded cage, was suddenly a prison, its walls closing in. She retreated to the living room, her movements robotic. She sank onto the plush sofa, her body trembling uncontrollably. Her mind was a maelstrom of betrayal and despair. This wasn't just an affair anymore. This was a rival claim. Another child, a Vance heir, whether Dominic wanted to admit it or not. Her own baby, her son, kicked inside her, a small, innocent life caught in the crossfire of his father's sins. For months, she had been a passive victim, a silent partner in Dominic's deceit, hoping that the birth of their child would be the anchor that saved their marriage. How naive she had been. The study door opened. Dominic emerged, his face pale, his composure shattered. He looked like a man who had seen a ghost. He saw her on the sofa, saw the tears streaming down her face, saw the raw, unfiltered agony in her eyes. The lie died on his lips. He knew that she knew. "Sienna," he began, his voice thin. She held up a hand, a gesture that took every ounce of her remaining strength. "Don't," she whispered, her voice trembling but clear. "Don't you dare say another word." For the first time in their marriage, Sienna Vance was not looking at her husband. She was looking at her enemy. The battle lines had been drawn not with angry words, but with a devastating, overheard truth. And in the heart of this luxurious Manhattan penthouse, a war was about to begin. The silence that followed Sienna's command was a living entity. It filled the vast, opulent space of the penthouse, suffocating the scent of roses and the cloying sweetness of the abandoned soufflé. Dominic stood frozen, halfway between the study and the living room, his face a canvas of disbelief and dawning horror. The hunter had become the hunted, caught in a trap of his own making. Sienna's gaze was unwavering. The tears had stopped, replaced by a glacial calm that was far more terrifying than any hysterical outburst. The shock had burned away the fog of her denial, leaving behind a core of diamond-hard fury. She saw him not as the man she had loved, but as a stranger who had systematically dismantled her life, piece by treacherous piece. "You heard," Dominic stated, the words flat and devoid of emotion. It wasn't a question. "I heard everything," Sienna replied, her voice low and steady. Each word was a perfectly polished stone dropped into a still pond, its ripples spreading outwards with devastating force. "I heard you lie about a contractor. I heard you speak her name. And I heard that your meaningless dalliance is pregnant." She let the last word hang in the air, a poisoned dart that found its mark. Dominic flinched, a visible tremor running through his powerful frame. He ran a hand through his perfect hair, messing it for the first time all evening. The mask was gone. In its place was raw, cornered panic. "Sienna, listen to me," he started, taking a step towards her. "We can fix this. It's a complication, that's all. It's a problem that money can solve." His words, meant to be reassuring, were gasoline on a raging fire. "A problem that money can solve," she repeated, a bitter, humorless laugh escaping her lips. "Is that what this is to you, Dominic? A line item on a balance sheet? A business deal gone wrong? You think you can write a check and make a baby disappear? Of course not. I just mean she can be taken care of. There are arrangements that can be made. She'll be compensated. She'll be comfortable. She'll sign whatever we need her to sign. It will be discreet." He was thinking aloud, his mind already spinning through the logistics of damage control, of burying a secret so deep it would never see the light of day. Sienna stared at him, a profound sense of revulsion washing over her. He wasn't talking about a woman or a child. He was talking about an inconvenience to be managed, a liability to be mitigated. "Her name is Chloe," Sienna said, the name feeling like shards of glass in her mouth. "Chloe Duval. She's a model, or was, before she met you. From Montreal. She's 26 years old. She likes vintage champagne and has a penchant for Cartier love bracelets. You bought her one last Christmas." Dominic's face went white. "How did you? Did you really think I was that stupid?" Sienna's voice was laced with contempt. "Did you think I was just a pretty, docile accessory you could hang jewels on while you lived another life? I've known about her for months, Dominic. I have copies of the credit card bills, the hotel receipts, the flight manifests. I have it all." She had been gathering the information methodically, a secret act of self-preservation, though until this moment she hadn't known what she would do with it. It had been her own little secret, a shield against the finality of the truth. Dominic's mind raced. This was worse than he thought. It wasn't just an overheard phone call. This was a calculated campaign. His wife, The woman he had always considered so beautifully pliable, had been building a case against him. "Why didn't you say anything?" he asked, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Because I was a fool," she said, her composure cracking for a moment as a wave of genuine pain washed over her. "Because I believed you when you said you would end it. Because I thought our child, our son," she emphasized the words with venom, "would be enough to make you a husband and a father. I thought he would be enough to make you a decent human being. I was wrong." Her baby kicked again, a sharp, insistent reminder of the life she was carrying. Her life. Her son. Her hand went to her belly, a fiercely protective gesture. The fight was no longer just for her own dignity. It was for her child's future, his birthright, his identity. Dominic's phone buzzed again. This time, the sound was an obscenity in the charged atmosphere. Both of their heads snapped towards the phone lying on the side table. Chloe's name glowed on the screen. "Don't you dare answer that," Sienna warned, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. But Dominic, driven by a desperate need to regain some semblance of control, snatched it up. "I have to handle this," he hissed, turning his back on her and walking towards the panoramic window, as if the glittering cityscape could offer him an escape. "Chloe, stop calling," he muttered into the phone. "Now is not the time." Sienna stood up. The room felt too small, the air too thin. She walked towards the bar, her movements deliberate. She poured herself a glass of water, her hand surprisingly steady. She was watching Dominic, observing him with a chilling detachment. He was pacing, his back to her, a caged tiger snarling into the phone. "I don't care what you think. It's complicated. No, you don't understand. Just give me some time to think." Time. That was the one thing Sienna knew they didn't have. An idea, cold and sharp as a shard of ice, began to form in her mind. It was a terrible, reckless idea born of desperation and a burning need for justice. Dominic finally ended the call, slamming the phone down on the marble bar top with a loud crack. He turned to face her, his expression a mixture of fury and desperation. "It's a mess, Sienna. A complete and utter mess. But I will fix it. I promise you, I will fix it." "There is no fixing this, Dominic," she said calmly, taking a sip of water. "There is only what happens next." He looked at her, puzzled by her strange serenity. "What does that mean?" "It means you have a choice to make," she said, setting the glass down. "You have 2 women pregnant with your children. You have to decide which future you want. The one with me, your wife, the mother of your legitimate heir, living the life you've so carefully constructed. Or the one with her." Dominic stared at her, relief beginning to flood his features. He thought this was a negotiation, an ultimatum he could win. He had misjudged her completely. "There's no choice, Sienna. It's you. It has always been you. She means nothing. The baby. It's a mistake. A biological accident. We'll make it go away." "Make the baby go away?" Sienna's eyes widened in feigned shock. "You mean an abortion? If that's what it takes. She'll do it. For the right price, she'll do anything." He spoke with the cold certainty of a man who believed every person had a price tag. "I see," Sienna said softly. She walked towards him, her gaze holding his. She reached up and touched his cheek, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. For a moment, Dominic thought he saw a glimmer of the old Sienna, the forgiving wife. He leaned into her touch, a desperate man clinging to a lifeline. "You're right, my love," she whispered, her voice a seductive purr that mirrored his own. "It's a terrible mess, and you must be so stressed." She straightened his tie, her movements fluid and intimate. "You need to handle this in person." He was caught off guard. "What?" "Go to her," Sienna said, her eyes boring into his. "Go to her now. Tell her what you've decided. Tell her about the arrangement. Tell her it's over. Tell her you are choosing your wife and your real family. You need to be firm, Dominic. You need to end this tonight, for good. The suggestion was so audacious, so contrary to what he expected, that he was momentarily speechless. He had anticipated a night of tears, recriminations, and slammed doors. Instead, his wife was sending him into the arms of his mistress. You want me to go see her now? Yes, Sienna said, her voice unwavering. I need to know it's done. I need to hear it from you when you come back, that it is unequivocally over. No more calls, no more secrets. Then, and only then, can we begin to figure out what's next for us. It was a masterstroke of psychological manipulation. She was giving him a way out, a clear path to redemption that he had to walk himself. She was empowering him to fix the problem, making him believe it was his own decisive action. Dominic, blinded by his own arrogance and desperate to salvage his perfect life, saw it as a sign of her strength, her pragmatism. He saw it as a victory. You're right, he said, his confidence surging back. You're absolutely right. I'll go now. I'll end it cleanly. Finally. He grabbed his keys and his wallet from the hall table. He turned to her before leaving, his eyes filled with a new, profound respect. Thank you, Sienna. You are stronger than I ever gave you credit for. He kissed her on the forehead, a gesture of finality, and walked out the door. The moment the lock clicked shut, Sienna's facade crumbled. She leaned against the wall, gasping for air, her body shaking. She had sent her husband to his mistress. It was the most painful, self-destructive thing she had ever done, but it was also the first move in her own game. She walked quickly to the study, her mind racing. She grabbed her own phone and a small, sophisticated listening device she had bought weeks ago, a purchase made in a moment of paranoid foresight. She had never used it, had hoped she would never have to. With trembling fingers, she dialed a number she knew by heart, the number of a private investigator she had consulted with months ago, a man named Marco. Marco, it's Sienna Vance, she said, her voice urgent and low. It's happening. Dominic is on his way to her apartment right now. 113B, Horatio Street, West Village. I need you there. I need everything. Audio, video if you can get it. Don't be seen. Just get it all. She hung up and took a deep, shuddering breath. She had sent her husband to end his affair. But she had also sent a witness to document the fallout. She had no illusions that Dominic's conversation with a desperate, pregnant Chloe would be neat or clean. It would be brutal. And Sienna wanted a record of every single word. She was no longer a victim. She was a strategist. And this war was far from over. The 45 minutes that followed Dominic's departure were the longest of Sienna's life. The cavernous penthouse, usually a symbol of security and status, felt like a pressure cooker. Every tick of the clock was a hammer blow against her sanity. She paced the length of the marble hallway, a caged animal waiting for news from the front lines of her own war. Her mind replayed the overheard conversation, the name Chloe, the word pregnant, a torturous loop of betrayal. Finally, her phone vibrated. It was a secure message from Marco. Target acquired. DV just entered the building. I have audio. Stand by. Sienna's breath hitched. She sank onto the edge of a cold leather armchair, her phone clutched in a white-knuckled grip. This was it, the point of no return. Marco was a professional, a former NYPD detective with a reputation for discretion and results. If anyone could get her what she needed, it was him. A few agonizing minutes later, a second message arrived. It was an audio file. Her heart pounded against her ribs as she pressed play. She put the phone to her ear, the world shrinking to the tiny, distorted sounds coming from the speaker. First, the sound of a door opening. Then, Chloe's voice, sharp and laced with a desperate hope. Dominic, I knew you'd come. I told you it was important. Then Dominic's voice, cold and devoid of any warmth. We need to talk, Chloe. Talk. That's all you have to say. I just told you I'm carrying your child, and you want to talk. There was the sound of a sob, a calculated performance of vulnerability that Sienna could see in her mind's eye. Let's be clear, Dominic's voice cut through the static. This situation is a problem. A problem I intend to solve tonight. Sienna listened, her stomach churning as Dominic laid out his terms. He was brutal, efficient, and utterly heartless. He spoke of a generous severance, a one-time payment that would require her to sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement and disappear from his life forever. He never once used the word baby. He referred to it only as the complication. You want me to get rid of it? Chloe's voice was a shocked whisper. You're asking me to have an abortion. I'm not asking you to do anything, Dominic corrected her smoothly. I'm offering you a choice. You can have a future of struggle, a single mother with no prospects, or you can accept my offer and have a future of financial security. The choice is yours. But either way, you will not be a part of my life. There was a long, heavy silence. Sienna held her breath. She was counting on Chloe's desperation, on her volatile nature. She didn't disappoint. You bastard. Chloe's shriek was so loud Sienna had to pull the phone away from her ear. You think you can just buy me off? You think you can erase me? Erase us? I loved you, Dominic. And this baby. This baby is a part of you. It's a biological consequence of a mistake, Dominic said, his voice like ice. A mistake I am now rectifying. Then came the part that made Sienna's blood run cold. The part that changed the entire game. You want to talk about mistakes, Dominic? Chloe's voice dropped, becoming low and venomous. Let's talk about your wife, the perfect, pristine Sienna. Did you ever wonder why she hasn't given you a child until now? After 3 years of marriage to a man obsessed with having an heir. Leave Sienna out of this, Dominic snapped. Oh, I think she's very much a part of this, Chloe sneered. You see, I did a little digging. A woman has to protect her interests, after all. It's amazing what you can find when you know where to look. Do the names Dr. Alastair Finch and the Westchester Fertility Clinic mean anything to you? Sienna's world stopped. A wave of dizziness washed over her, so intense she had to grip the arms of the chair to keep from falling. How? How could she possibly know that? The Westchester Fertility Clinic was Sienna's deepest, most painful secret. It was a secret she had kept even from Dominic. After a year of trying to conceive naturally with no success, she had gone to the clinic, terrified of being seen as flawed or inadequate in her husband's eyes. The diagnosis had been devastating, diminished ovarian reserve. The chances of her conceiving naturally were almost zero. The baby she was carrying now was a miracle of modern science, the result of a grueling, emotionally draining, and incredibly expensive IVF journey she had funded herself by secretly selling off jewelry Dominic had given her. I don't know what you're talking about, Dominic's voice was tight, but Sienna could hear the seed of uncertainty Chloe had planted. Don't you? Chloe's laugh was triumphant. Ask her, Dominic. Ask your precious wife about her little secret. Ask her why she was so desperate to get pregnant right when you started pulling away. Maybe her baby isn't the miracle you think it is. Maybe it's just a very, very smart career move. The audio file ended there. Sienna sat in stunned silence, the phone slipping from her fingers and clattering onto the marble floor. Chloe hadn't just exposed the affair, she had detonated a bomb in the very foundation of Sienna's life. She had taken Sienna's most private pain and twisted it into a weapon. The betrayal was so profound, so multi-layered, it was hard to comprehend. Dominic had betrayed her with his body. Chloe had betrayed her with this malicious, calculated revelation. But in a strange, twisted way, Sienna felt she had also betrayed herself by hiding the truth from Dominic in the first place. Her desire to be the perfect wife, to meet his impossible standards, had created the very vulnerability Chloe was now exploiting. The sound of the key in the front door made her jump. Dominic was back. She stood up, her body moving on autopilot. She smoothed down her dress, her mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. When Dominic walked in, he looked drained but victorious. He saw her standing there, calm and composed, and a look of relief washed over his face. "It's done," he announced, his voice hoarse. "It's over. She was difficult, but she'll take the money. It's finished." He walked towards her, his arms outstretched, expecting to be welcomed back into the fold, his sins absolved. But Sienna took a step back. "Is it, Dominic?" she asked, her voice quiet. "Is it really finished?" He frowned, confused by her retreat. "Yes. I told you I would handle it." "You handled Chloe," she said, her eyes locking onto his. "But you didn't handle the truth, did you?" A flicker of apprehension crossed his face. "What are you talking about?" "While you were gone," Sienna said, her voice gaining strength, "I had some time to think. About us, about our marriage, and about all the secrets we've been keeping from each other." She let the words hang in the air, a deliberate echo of the accusation he had just faced. "Dominic," she said, her tone shifting from accusation to a soft, almost pleading vulnerability. "It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. There's something I should have told you a long time ago, something I was too scared to tell you." She saw the suspicion in his eyes, the seed Chloe had planted already taking root. He was waiting for the confession Chloe had primed him for. I wasn't sure I could ever give you a child," Sienna whispered, forcing tears to well in her eyes. "We tried for so long and nothing happened. I was so scared you would leave me. That I wasn't enough." Dominic's expression softened slightly. This was not what he was expecting. He was expecting a confession of deceit, not a confession of fear. "So, I did something," she continued, her voice breaking. "I went to a clinic. The Westchester Fertility Clinic." She saw his jaw tighten at the name. He knew. "It was my secret, my shame," she sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "I went through IVF, Dominic, all by myself. I paid for it with the jewelry you gave me. I wanted to give you this baby so badly, to save us, that I did it behind your back. This baby," she touched her stomach, "our son. He's from a donor." The lie was monumental. A stroke of pure, desperate genius. It was a lie built on the foundation of Chloe's truth but twisted into something new, something far more explosive. She had taken Chloe's accusation that the baby was a calculated move and confirmed it in the most devastating way possible. Dominic stared at her, his face a mask of disbelief. The color drained from his cheeks. The one thing in his life he believed was pure, the one thing that was unequivocally his heir, his legacy was suddenly a lie. "A donor," he choked out the word, his voice barely a whisper. "You're telling me this baby is not mine?" "I'm so sorry, Dominic," she wept. "I was going to tell you. I swear I was. I was just so afraid." He stumbled backward, his hand gripping the back of a chair for support. The triumphant victor who had walked through the door just minutes ago was gone. In his place was a man whose entire world had just been obliterated. His wife's infidelity was one thing, he could understand that, even control it. But this was a betrayal of his bloodline, his very essence. He looked at her swollen belly, and his eyes were filled with a terrifying, cold rage. The penthouse, once a symbol of his power, now felt like the stage for his ultimate humiliation. Sienna watched him, her heart pounding. She had gambled everything on this one audacious lie. She had sacrificed the truth of her own son's paternity to reclaim her power. She had taken the war to a new, unforeseen battlefield. And as she looked at the shattered man in front of her, she knew one thing for certain. The unraveling had just begun. The days following Sienna's earth-shattering lie were suspended in a strange, toxic silence. The penthouse, once a stage for their perfect life, transformed into a mausoleum. They were ghosts haunting the same opulent halls, their presence a constant, chilling reminder of the wreckage between them. Dominic had retreated to the guest wing, the heavy doors serving as a barricade against the woman he now saw as a complete stranger. He became a creature of the night, fueled by rage and paranoia. Sienna would lie awake, listening to the muffled sounds of his fury seeping from beneath his study door, low, guttural phone calls to his legal team, the sharp, percussive tapping of his keyboard as he tore through digital rabbit holes. He was hunting for the phantom donor, the faceless man who had, in Dominic's mind, cuckolded him. Sienna had created a ghost, and now her husband was trying to exorcise it with brute financial force. The irony was not lost on her. Her lie had given his anger a focus, a tangible target, and for now, that kept her and the true paternity of her son safe in the shadows of his obsession. But Sienna was not naive. This was a temporary ceasefire in a war she was determined to win. Dominic was a predator, and a cornered predator was unpredictable. Once his hunt for the non-existent donor proved fruitless, his rage would need a new target. It would turn back to her, and it would be merciless. She had to move, and she had to move now. She had to forge a weapon before he could forge one against her. And a weapon required an ally, even if that ally was the person she despised most in the world. It took 3 days of careful, clandestine planning. Using a newly purchased burner phone, she sent a single, untraceable text message: "We have a mutual acquaintance and a mutual problem. A coffee shop in Dumbo. Friday 10 a.m. Come alone." When Chloe Duvall slid into the vinyl booth of the waterfront cafe, she was almost unrecognizable. The vixen from the tabloids, the confident model who dripped glamour, was gone. In her place was a woman hollowed out by fear. Dark circles bruised the skin under her eyes. Her fiery red hair was scraped back in a messy bun, and the designer handbag she clutched seemed like a relic from another life. The severance package Dominic had spoken of had never materialized. He had cut her off financially and emotionally the second Sienna had presented him with a greater, more intimate betrayal. Chloe's eyes, filled with hostility, met Sienna's across the table. "What do you want?" Her voice was brittle, stripped of its seductive purr. Sienna took a deliberately slow sip from her cup, projecting a calm she did not feel. She had rehearsed this moment, knowing that the first few words would determine everything. "Hello, Chloe. I'm not here to discuss what I want. I think the more pressing question is, what do we want?" The use of "we" was a calculated shock. Chloe scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. "There is no we. You hate me. You're his wife." "Oh, I do hate you," Sienna conceded, her voice a flat, emotionless razor. "Let's be perfectly clear about that. You slept with my husband. You weaponized my most private pain in a pathetic attempt to secure your own position. On a personal level, I find you reprehensible." She paused, letting the brutal honesty land. "But my feelings are a luxury we can no longer afford. What is relevant, what is the only thing that matters now, is that we share a common enemy. A man who will crush us both without a second thought if we let him." Chloe stared, her defenses momentarily short-circuited by Sienna's frankness. She had expected tears, threats, maybe a slap. She had not expected a business proposal. "His name is Dominic," Sienna stated, as if closing a deal. "And he has played us both for absolute fools. He used your body for his entertainment and was ready to pay you to eliminate your child when you became inconvenient. He used my devotion as a cover for his deceits. We are two sides of the same worthless coin to him. We are his victims." "Victims?" Chloe's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Look at you. You're still Sienna Vance. You're still living in that palace, dripping in diamonds. I'm 2 weeks from being thrown out of my apartment. For now, Sienna said, her voice dropping as she leaned forward, her intensity creating a private, conspiratorial bubble around their table. You are looking at this all wrong. You see my penthouse, but I see a prison I'll soon be evicted from. He's looking at me right now and seeing the mother of another man's child. Do you have any idea what a man like Dominic Vance does to people who commit what he sees as the ultimate betrayal? He doesn't just divorce them. He annihilates them. He will use his fortune to ensure I am left with nothing. He will leak stories to the press, painting me as a cheating, unstable, gold-digging bitch to prove I'm an unfit mother. He will take my son from me, not out of love, but out of spite. He will grind my name, my reputation, and my spirit into dust. The grim, detailed prophecy hung in the air. The color drained from Chloe's face as the truth of Sienna's words resonated with her own experiences of Dominic's ruthlessness. And you, Sienna pressed, her eyes boring into Chloe's. You are carrying his actual biological child, his heir. Right now, you are a footnote because he's consumed by my infidelity. But what happens when he's done destroying me? He'll remember you. He will come for you. His lawyers will swarm you, force a paternity test, and then the real nightmare begins. He will offer you a pittance for your silence. And if you refuse, he'll drag you through a brutal custody battle. He'll use every secret you ever told him, every mistake you ever made, to prove you are nothing more than a degenerate tramp trying to cash in. He will take your baby, Chloe, and you will be left with nothing. She let the silence stretch, allowing the full weight of their shared, terrifying future to settle. They were trapped. Two different women caught in the same steel jaws. We are in the exact same boat, Sienna concluded softly. He wants to erase us. He wants to erase our children. Unless we work together. Chloe was silent for a full minute, her gaze lost somewhere over Sienna's shoulder. Seeing the bleak future laid out before her, an alliance with her sworn enemy. It was insane. It was unthinkable. And it was, she realized with a sickening lurch, her only conceivable path to survival. What kind of alliance? She finally whispered. A wave of relief, cold and sharp, washed over Sienna. The hook was set. First, she began, her voice crisp and businesslike, her plan already fully formed, you need to vanish. Not forever. Just long enough for him to believe you've given up. He's expecting you to become a problem. To be hysterical, to keep calling, to sue. We will do the opposite of what he expects. She reached into her handbag and slid a thick, discreet manila envelope across the table. There's cash in there. $20,000. It's a start. Enough to break your lease, rent a quiet furnished apartment out of the city. Somewhere in Connecticut, maybe. I want you to go dark. No social media, a new phone number. I will be your one and only point of contact. Chloe stared at the envelope as if it were a bomb. Her hand trembled as she reached out to touch it. You're giving this to me? After what I did? I am not giving it to you, Sienna corrected her, her voice like ice. I am investing it. I am investing in time. His assumption that you have been dealt with will buy us the time we need to gather our ammunition. Ammunition? What ammunition? Leverage, Sienna said, and for the first time, a dangerous, predatory glint sparked in her own eyes. She was starting to sound like Dominic, and the thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Real leverage, the kind that matters to a man like him. I don't care about his affairs. They're a symptom, not the disease. I'm talking about the kind of information that can dismantle his empire from the inside out. Remember the St. Regis project, the greased palms? I want to know whose palms, how much, and where the receipts are. I want every dirty zoning variance, every shell corporation he uses to hide assets, every illegal corner he has ever cut to build his precious kingdom. She leaned in even closer, her voice barely a whisper. He trusted you, Chloe, in his own sick way. You were his confessor. He would get drunk or high on a new victory, and he would brag. What did he tell you in those moments when his guard was down? Names, deals, offhand comments. Think, Chloe. Your future, and your child's future, depends on what you can remember. A flicker of comprehension ignited in Chloe's tired eyes. He had bragged constantly about his own cleverness, about the idiocy of his rivals, about the pliability of powerful men. She had been his ego's sounding board. There were things, Chloe said slowly, her mind starting to work, to sift through the months of pillow talk and arrogant monologues. Names I didn't know. He talked about a city councilman, O'Malley. Michael O'Malley. Said the guy had a weakness for the ponies and that it had made the zoning for his new Hell's Kitchen tower remarkably simple. Sienna's lips curved into the faintest, coldest of smiles. Good, she said. That's a very good start. The unholy alliance was forged right there, in the shared fire of their mutual desperation. In the weeks that followed, a silent, deadly campaign began. From a secluded cottage in rural Connecticut, Chloe became a ghost in the machine, feeding Sienna fragments of memory via encrypted texts. A name here, a whispered deal there. Sienna, in turn, became the general, collecting the information and feeding it to Marco, her private investigator. Marco, a man who thrived in the shadows, began to pull on the threads, and they started to unravel, revealing a tapestry of bribery, fraud, and corruption that was more rotten and sprawling than either woman had ever imagined. Meanwhile, the Cold War in the penthouse was escalating toward a breaking point. Dominic's failure to find a single shred of evidence of a sperm donor was driving him into a state of volatile madness. The lack of an answer was, to his conspiratorial mind, proof of an even more elaborate deception. He started seeing plots everywhere. One morning, he fired their housekeeper of 5 years, accusing her of being Sienna's spy. He'd look at Sienna's belly with a mixture of revulsion and confusion, a man staring at a puzzle he could not solve. The final detonation came on a gray, rain-swept Tuesday afternoon. Sienna was in the nursery, the one room in the apartment that still felt like a sanctuary, calmly folding a tiny cashmere sweater. The door was thrown open with such force that it slammed against the wall, and Dominic stormed in. His face was a mask of crimson fury, his eyes bloodshot and wild. He brandished a thick file like a weapon. "I know what you did," he hissed, his voice a venomous rasp. Sienna's heart hammered against her ribs, but she forced herself to look up at him, her face a placid mask. "I'm not sure what you mean, Dominic." "The clinic," he roared, flinging the file with all his might. Papers exploded across the room, scattering over the crib and the changing table like toxic confetti. "I've had the best white-collar investigators in the country on this for weeks. There is no donor. There is no secret IVF payment. There is no record of you at all. There is nothing." "Then perhaps your investigators aren't as good as you think," Sienna replied, her voice an infuriating whisper of calm. "No." He lunged across the room, closing the distance between them in 2 massive strides. His presence was huge, menacing. "It means you lied. It means you concocted this whole insane, elaborate story just to torture me. But why? If there was no donor, then what is the truth, Sienna? Tell me the truth." He grabbed her by her upper arms, his fingers digging into her flesh with bruising force. For the first time, Sienna felt a primal spike of fear. She had goaded the beast for too long, and now it was turning on her. This was it, the end game. "The truth," she said, allowing a tremor to enter her voice, her eyes holding his. "You really want the truth, Dominic?" She took a deep, shuddering breath. It was time to play her final, most dangerous card. It was a lie of such breathtaking audacity that it could either save her or destroy her in a single instant. "The truth," she said, her voice dropping to a dramatic, tragic whisper, "is that the baby isn't yours. You're right about that. But it's not from a donor, either. Dominic stared, his furious mind struggling to compute this new variable. What? What are you saying? Sienna's gaze shifted past him, a small, sad, self-deprecating smile touching her lips. It was a masterful performance of a broken woman confessing her deepest shame. I'm saying, she said, her voice filled with a hollow, tragic finality, that I did what you did, Dominic. I had an affair. It was the ultimate gambit. A confession of infidelity. She was handing him the moral high ground on a silver platter, giving him the perfect, unimpeachable reason to divorce her, shame her, and take everything she had, including their child. It was a move that looked to all the world like complete and utter surrender. But it wasn't. It was checkmate, and he had just walked right into it. Dominic's rage transformed into a cold, triumphant fury. This, he could understand. This was a simple, primal betrayal he could fight and win. The complex, humiliating mystery of the donor was gone, replaced by a straightforward sin he could punish. An affair, he sneered, his grip loosening as a cruel smile spread across his face. So, the saint in the penthouse has her own secrets. Who was it? Someone I know. It doesn't matter. You just handed me everything. He released her, stepping back with the smug confidence of a man who had just won the war. He pulled out his primary phone, the one for his real business. You're finished, Sienna. My lawyers will have divorce papers drawn up by morning. I'll take everything. And I will prove in a court of law that you are an adulterous, unfit mother. This child, he gestured to her belly with disgust, will be raised by me. You will never see him. Is that so? Sienna asked, her voice now devoid of its tragic tremor, replaced by something hard and unyielding. As Dominic was barking orders at his legal team, Sienna calmly walked to the living room and turned on the large television to a 24-hour news channel. He barely noticed, consumed by his victory. But then, a breaking news banner flashed across the bottom of the screen. Breaking news, Vance Holdings CEO Dominic Vance under federal investigation for bribery, fraud. Dominic stopped cold, the phone slipping from his hand. On the screen, a stern-faced U.S. attorney was at a podium, flanked by FBI agents. He was detailing a sprawling scheme of illegal kickbacks, shell corporations, and bribery involving city officials including one Michael O'Malley. Anonymous whistleblowers from within the organization provided a mountain of irrefutable evidence, the attorney was saying. Documents, offshore account numbers, and recorded conversations. Dominic's face turned ashen. He turned to Sienna, his eyes wide with a new kind of horror. He finally understood. The lies, the drama, the confessionate was all a diversion. While he was busy hunting ghosts and celebrating his personal victory, she had been systematically dismantling his empire. You, he whispered, the single word filled with a dawning, terrifying comprehension. This was you. We, Sienna corrected him, a cool, satisfied smile finally gracing her lips. Chloe sends her regards. It turns out she's a very good listener. The penthouse doorbell rang, a sharp, insistent chime that echoed like a death knell. Through the glass, they could see the flashing red and blue lights of federal vehicles flooding the street below. A moment later, the heavy oak door was being battered by an FBI ram. The war was over. Sienna had won. 6 months later, Sienna stood in the nursery, holding her son, whose name was Leo. The penthouse was sold. The Tom Ford suits and staggering sapphire necklaces were gone, liquidated to pay a fraction of the legal fees and federal fines that had bankrupted what was left of Vance Holdings. Dominic had taken a plea deal and was serving a 7-year sentence in a minimum security federal prison. Sienna had moved them to a beautiful, sunlit brownstone in Brooklyn. It was a home, not a cage. The unholy alliance had served its purpose. With a portion of her now secure assets, Sienna had set up an anonymous, ironclad trust for Chloe and her daughter, ensuring they would want for nothing. They never spoke again, but an understanding passed between them, a quiet acknowledgement of two women who had been pushed to the brink and had clawed their way back. Sienna looked down at her son, her real son, the true Vance heir. He had her eyes. He was her victory, her reason, her beautiful, perfect truth. She had walked through fire, lied, and manipulated, becoming a reflection of the man she despised in order to escape him. But looking at her child, she knew she had done it not for revenge, but for survival. For him. She was finally free. That was a roller coaster of emotions, wasn't it? A story of deceit, betrayal, and two women who decided to fight back against the powerful man who tried to ruin them, and ultimately found their own kind of justice and peace. The ultimate confrontation was everything we hoped for, and the ending was a victory for the ages. If you are on the edge of your seat and loved seeing this web of lies unravel, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who loves a good drama. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when our next jaw-dropping story drops. Your support means everything, and it allows me to keep bringing you stories like this. Thanks for listening.